Um, Welcome to everyone in the audience here and online. It is the May 9th meeting and work session of the Flathead Reservation Water Management Board. And I'd like to start by, as usual, an opening prayer. So we have a volunteer for an opening prayer, please. Teresa, thank you.
Yes. Want to bow our heads and think wonderful thoughts and thank the Lord for this beautiful day, the warm weather. And thank the Lord for the many, many blessings that He's bestowed upon all of us. We want to ask that He gives grace and provides sustenance and shelter to those in our community who may be in need of food and shelter. We ask that He gives strength to anyone in the community who is grieving or dealing with loss. And we ask for His continued blessings so that we can continue to be positive forces in the world. Amen.
Thank you, Teresa. Okay, attendance, please.
Kevin Pitt.
Here.
Teresa Wall McDonald.
Here.
Clayton Mack.
Here.
George Smith.
Here.
Roger Noble.
Here.
And Shane Henderson is not here today.
Right. Thank you. We have a quorum. We'll continue. The typical announcement for us is that all meeting minutes of past meetings are on the DNRC and CSKT websites. If anyone wishes to review them, they're available there. So moving on to adopt the agenda. So questions first, and understand Ethan might have a comment on the agenda. So Ethan?
Mr. Chairman, board members, I am encouraging you to strike one item off of the agenda today, item 4, which is the domestic allowances policies. Those are still in some additional development that seems fairly consistent, but nonetheless, we hope to have something more in your hand on Thursday's meeting.
Oh,
Yeah.
So you're talking about item 4 on the bottom part.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so
Mr.
there's
Chairman,
2
my
items.
apologies for the confusion there. I forgot that we renumbered things there.
Yeah,
On the work session agenda.
Yes.
we delete the other 4 routinely anyway.
Well,
Well, we don't delete it, they're just,
By default.
that's-
Omit it.
yeah.
There you go.
Oversee it.
So the bottom, number 4, domestic allowances. So consensus of the board, Roger?
I'm okay with that. If they're not ready, it's better to wait.
Good. Good. Yes. All right. We'll delete that.
Excellent. Mr. Chairman, I will let you know that we do have a member from the public that is wanting to talk today. And obviously you'll have to finalize your agenda topic. But while I was up here, since it's the next item, just wanted to make sure that you gave Mr. Bill Burkowski a moment, and he does have a handout, and I'll hand that out to you.
We'll have that for the public comment.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes,
So,
sir.
board members, any other comments or changes to the agenda? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Would move to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion by Teresa.
Second.
Second by George, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. All right. So stretch the correction here. Okay. So we have public comments for items not on the agenda. So understand we do have a public comment. Someone in the audience here, please step up. Give us your name and your comment, please. Welcome.
My name is William Burkowski, and I sold some land in Folsom off of Flathead View Drive, decided to retire up on the Flathead. Been coming up here since 1981, and brother retired here. It was sort of congested over there off of Flathead View Drive to the west of Polson. And I went to Hot Springs. And I love Hot Springs. I like that valley. And I've been driving it, you know, a lot of years. So I put a submittal in through a consultant, Rocky Mountain Surveyors, Ron Warren. I've hired to do all the background investigation, and he's done that. The 40 acres I have subdivided. I put 2 lots, all 5-acre lots, and put a submittal into the board, to the water district, and it was returned with a letter saying that it can't be processed at this time. I, 18 months ago, bought the land, and last June was able to submit a domestic for the 2 family transfer lots, and I have received approval from the board on the water and the sewer from Sanders County. The other 5 lots are, I guess, not submittable. I can't submit them at this time. So I came down and met Ethan, and the realtors can't tell me anything. The consultant can't tell me anything. So I figured I'd come down and get involved and try to figure out where I stand. The submittal was for individual wells on the 5-acre lots. A community well is something that, based on the density and just the physical area, a network of water works isn't what I had imagined. And I'm looking at the Elmo. In Elmo, there's a 5-acre parcel subdivision up there, and those are individual lots. And yeah, that was done a while back, but I'm just trying to figure out where I stand and if there's anything I can do to help, because I am pre-approved from Sanders County, and I have all the septic ready to go with Sean Sorensen, and did perk testing and stream monitoring and soil profiling and everything. It's pending water. So not quite sure about the water yet. And then I'm just gonna go on Thursday and follow up with Ethan and see if there's anything that the board says or the governing authorities say, and tell the consultant, because they're not gonna come down, and they can't tell me anything. It got put back on the shelf, and so I'm just not quite sure what to do. That's it.
Okay, well, we appreciate your comment, and I think meeting with Ethan is the appropriate administrative process for now.
Yes.
I don't know if the board has any questions for Ethan, but I suspect that Ethan, you've given a response. My reading of what he just said is that there wasn't a denial, just not, we cannot do it at this time. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, board members, yes, so what I did hand out there on behalf of Mr. Bukowski is a quick plot layout, and for the board's consideration, what our office had seen previously is the 2 parcels here in the center had proposed wells for those 2. That is below our 3-well threshold that this board set in policy earlier in the year. And so those sailed through with our standard individual domestic allowance process. The additional application that came in had 5 additional individual wells, at which point we jump into this new threshold of beyond what we can allow under an individual or shared arrangement, and kind of have to reconfigure how we would approach the project in light of knowing that Mr. Bukowski wanted to actually put wells on all those lots now. So it's a different arrangement, something that went from kind of, you look at it one way on the day where you see 2 applications on this piece of land, and then it kind of changes the nature of the application when you see multiple ones. this, I thought, was a good example for the board to see of the kind of issues that water users, new water users are having here on the reservation. This is the kind of project that we need to come up with some clear guidance about on how this will work, and that the staged development will need to be a part of that guidance. And that's why the particular project is, I know the board is waiting for an updated policy piece, so they can tear into it and get some comments in there. And part of the difficulty with that is drafting something that covers all of these types of scenarios. That said, I did encourage Mr. Kowski to come in here and speak to the board, because I thought it would be a good opportunity for you to know what's going on, and also for Mr. Kowski to be heard. Thank you.
Yeah. Given that, if you have another comment, sir, please step up and give us your name again and your comment.
William Burkowski again, and that community, the 7 lots, I have a brother in Connecticut and myself and a son and a daughter will be there. It's not to sell out. I am, my whole life built buildings. I'm a high-rise guy from Boston. And what I'm doing out there is small modular homes. They're 1,000 square foot. They're all modular frames, and the community would benefit from that. And the water usage, I'm willing to, if I could have individual wells, monitor and report on it, each one of them. So whatever the concerns the board has on water and water usage, I'm willing to comply.
Thank you for your comment. Ethan, thank you for your comment. So I think at this point, we take those comments and move forward, and I thank you for being willing to meet with Ethan. So any other public comments from anyone in the audience here or online?
Anyone online would like to make a comment, you can raise your hand, I'll allow you to speak. Not seeing any public comment online.
Okay, seeing none online, no more individuals here, so we'll move on. The next item, close that public comment section. Okay, we want to go to 3.1, approve meeting minutes from 4/6. So we have 3 meeting minutes. So the wishes of the board, do you want to do them individually, or would you like to do them as a group?
I think we should do them individually because I have a correction on
Yeah.
one of them.
Correction, that's fine. So meeting minutes from 4/6.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to need to abstain from that, so isn't here.
Okay,
Because I got the summary was good, so I'll make a motion to accept the April 6th minutes as stated.
motion to approve the April 6th minutes. Roger, second by Georgia. All in favor, say aye. Aye. And Stan has abstained from that. Otherwise, all in favor. Meeting minutes. 4/13. Minutes of 4/13, please.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Ken to approve the meeting minutes of 4/13.
I'll second that.
Second by Teresa, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those minutes are approved. Thank you. And moving on to approve meeting discussion record from 4/25.
So this is the one that, under item 5, update on development, it has a list of things, but my notes from that day indicated that we had deleted that item. So these minutes aren't quite correct.
Okay, so Ethan, any comments?
Mr. Chairman, Board Member Noble, that is accurate. That was supposed to be a line strike green, and my apologies for the error, and thank you for paying attention.
Item number 5 was stricken at the time of the meeting, so we strike it from the meeting minutes. Any other comments? April 25.
So with that correction, I would make a motion to approve those.
Motion to approve by Roger, April 25 meeting minutes with the correction. Second by Georgia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
It wasn't. It was.
Okay. So it's been a while, but we're ready to revisit the voting for the chair and the vice chair. And before we do that, Ethan, you said you had some comments.
Mr. Chairman, board members, I would like a moment of your time to let Carrie Mueller and the staff go over some items from the bylaws regarding election process. She's got a brief review of your bylaw materials to help offer some context to the upcoming vote here. Is that simple?
That's fine, thank you.
Afternoon, board members. This is Carrie Mueller. As per the agenda, the board will vote on board positions at this meeting. In your packets, there's a printout of Article 4, board positions and committees from the bylaws of the Flathead Reservation Water Management Board. I will be reviewing these with you all and adding a couple comments to the process. Please let me know if I need to speak up or if you can't hear me. So Article 4, board positions and committees, Section 4.1, board positions. The board will choose 2 of its members to serve in the following roles: board chair and board vice chair. The board chair shall preside at all meetings of the board and shall have general charge over the affairs of the board, subject to the approval of the board. The board chair and the vice chair are responsible for maintaining the order and decorum of meetings. The chair can sign contracts on behalf of the board and perform other duties that may be imposed by the board. The chair may also appoint board members to committees as may be necessary. The chair serves as the primary copy on communications from the Office of the Engineer regarding 1, payroll, 2, legal workflow management, 3, contracts relating to the board of the Office of the Engineer, and 4, issues of personnel action taken by the water engineer or the water engineer's designee. The board chair shall provide final authorization to all board member compensation requests other than their own. And in the absence of the chair, the board vice chair shall preside at all meetings of the board and shall have a general charge over the affairs of the board, subject to the approval of the board. The board chair and the vice chair are responsible for maintaining the order and decorum of meetings. The vice chair can sign contracts on behalf of the board and perform other duties that may be imposed by the board. The vice chair may also appoint board members to committees as may be necessary. The board vice chair provides final authorization for compensation requests from the board chair. In addition, as outlined in section 4.4, board committees and or work groups, in the case of the board creating a committee or work group for special tasks, appointees to committees are made by the board chair or the vice chair in the absence of the chair. Section 4.2, board position election frequency and term. once a year during the board's first or second meeting of the calendar year, although this is later. Board positions will be revisited and determined. There is no mandate to change board positions, and no position has a term limit. Section 4.3, board position elections. To select or reaffirm board members' position, an agenda item for board position elections is noticed at a regular board meeting. For each position, the meeting floor is opened for board members to nominate or reaffirm a selected position by fellow board members. Nominees must accept the nomination in order for their name to stand for the position. The floor remains open for nominations until no more nominations or reaffirmations are made. When nominations have been completed, the nomination process is declared closed, and those individuals who have agreed to let their name stand are now candidates for election to the position. The election is held using a voice vote. Board members can vote for themselves if they are a candidate. The candidate with the most votes is selected to hold the board position. If only one person accepts the nomination for a board position, the board still holds a vote to confirm the position, which requires a majority vote. If no board member accepts the nomination for a board position, the position is filled by lottery decision from board members that are not already selected into a board position. Board positions are selected one at a time in the order they are listed in section 4.1 above. As recommended by the water engineer, the sitting chair will drive the voting process unless the board requests the water engineer to do so. And in summary, the floor will open to nominations of the board chair. Then the floor will be closed to nominations. The board then votes by voice. If nominated, board members can vote for themselves, and the water engineer requests that no members abstain from voting, and then we will do the same for the board vice chair. If there is a change in the board chair and board vice chair positions today, before voting, it is recommended that the board decide what will happen in the case of a change of board chair and board vice chair. That is whether the change in responsibilities occurs immediately or after the meeting has finished. Thank you.
My suggestion is once we open the vote and in terms of the chair position, once that's decided, the new chair should just immediately take over, but that's just me.
Okay.
That's fine.
Floor is open. Nominations for election of the chair.
I'd like to nominate Clayton, reaffirm Clayton for another term.
I would second that.
Any other nominations? And at this point, I would accept. Any other nominations? Any other nominations for chair? All right. No other nominations. We will close the nominations for the chair. We take a final vote to confirm, so we'll do a voice vote, so Roger,
Yes.
Georgia,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
Yes.
and I would accept and I appreciate it. Thank you very much. So we'll continue. Close that, and nominations for vice chair are open.
I would like to nominate Roger as vice chair.
Roger is nominated as chair. Roger, do you accept?
Yes.
Any,
I will second.
any other nominations for vice chair? Any other nominations for vice chair? Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Roger. So we will close nominations for vice chair and take that vote for that to confirm that. So Roger, you've accepted, so it's a yes vote. Georgia? And yes, Teresa?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, all right, unanimous. So, new vice chair, thank you. And thank you, Ken, for the time that you spent. I know you've filled in some and appreciate that and appreciate everyone's work on it. So, and thank you, I appreciate that. I hope I'm able to continue to do a good job. So if I'm not, keep me honest. Okay. And thank you to the staff for preparing. So we're on to the first item, number 4, which is board member updates. So do we have any board member updates? So Roger, any updates for us?
No. I guess we've been continuing to work on this domestic allowance policy thing. It appears to be coming to a product. Hopefully we'll have something possibly at the next meeting.
Georgia?
No updates.
Teresa?
No updates.
Okay, Ken, no updates. Okay, and I don't have any additional updates either. So we have another public comment opportunity second here. And so we'll open for any final public comments for this part of the agenda before we move on to the work session. Any public comments from anyone in the audience here or online?
If anyone online would like to make a public comment, you can raise your hand, I'll allow you to speak. Seeing no public comment online.
Seeing no public comment online or in person, we'll close the public comment section, move on to next steps, which indicates that our next meeting is Thursday, May 11th. That's Thursday this week at 1 p.m. Are there any other comments on those? So that's the next meeting. All right, with that, we will end the regular meeting portion. So that closes the open meeting portion, and we're going to move on to a work session. And again, as part of the work session, we just had a public comment. This has listed a public comment on here again. So I think if it's all right with the board members, I think we'll just move on and hold that till the end in case there is any public comment or anything. And in terms of a work session, we wouldn't plan on taking any action during that session anyway, so if that's all right, we'll move on. Moving on to item 3, which is the Office of Water Engineer Personnel Policies. So Ethan.
Mr. Chairman, board members, you should have a copy of the draft personnel policy in the packet today. You know, if you don't, we'll make sure we get something for you. I'd like to start with a brief discussion about the document, how it came to be, and we will find out then where we're at and what the board needs to move forward on things. When I started here, I received a draft personnel handbook. I believe that handbook was largely developed with board member Pitt, board member Smees, Greg Wilson with the HR group, and Payla Hoyt. Maybe also Melissa Schlichting, I'm not sure. I was not a participant. Please do feel free to correct me if I was wrong on that. Does that sound accurate? Okay, good deal. And so I took a lot of the information, the good information there, married that up with some updated information about this office being a government office, trying to match an array of different kinds of expectations and did some reformatting. So we had an interactive table of contents and such like that, and have kind of reframed this. The original handbook was not so much a binding document. This is intended to be more of a binding document. So not a suggestion, but these are, you know, fast and firm policies like bylaws and other effect like that. That said, there were a significant number of changes. The real, you know, gist of this is that there's still some gaps. The gaps are intended to be highlighted in gray, the ones that I know about. Gaps include ADA compliance, health insurance, and life insurance. But otherwise, there's a lot of pretty good stuff. There's a vehicle policy we need to come up with. We thought maybe we'd come up with a vehicle before we came up with a vehicle policy. So not exactly on the top of my list until we get there. But I have had interaction with staff on the creation of these policies, trying to find favorable policies for staff. We did not have 100% agreement on everything in here, but I do believe staff got to participate to a certain level. You know, that said, major differences between this and what I was originally handed, beyond the fact that this is more of a firm policy, is that this document does acknowledge that the Office of the Engineer needs to be Family Medical Leave Act compliant. That was something that I've learned in my research. I did also go through and try to update. I think some of the stock language that came from the handbook was from associated employers, was maybe a little bit dated. So I tried to bring forward some updates. There is a pretty robust focus on employee conduct, non-discrimination and anti-harassment behavior expectations. Policy does make some clarification in here that updates to the policy are possible, but they would require a unanimous approval vote from the board. I am quite sure that the policy still has a few typos in here, but we needed to get something out in front of you. This is the second draft that the board has received. And on the first draft, we didn't have a whole lot of comments from any of the board members. If there were, and I'm overlooking that, please do correct me now. There is some clarifications that we will need to go through. This policy does set forth kind of some more immediate needs for us to update our job descriptions and make clarifications about exempt versus non-exempt employee status. And that is something that's a federal law compliance. State law also embraces exempt and non-exempt status in the classification process. We have some discipline and termination procedures. We have performance planning. We have clarifications about probationary periods. There is also performance improvement planning. Talks a little bit about permanent status and more importantly, an employee promotion plan, which I thought was an important thing to include. There's opportunities for employee awards. There's clarification about attendance and breaks and schedules and telework. We have some clarifications about one of the most pressing clarifications is employee leave benefits and how to go about calculating employee leave, holidays, which went back and forth a little bit on which holidays should be the holidays that move forward. Clarifications on the types of leave that we recognize and how those types of leave will generally be handled. We do have, like I said, placeholders for health insurance and life insurance. We do have retirement. I do encourage you to look over the retirement section and see if it meets the board's expectations for what they set forth in resolution number 3. Board resolution number 3. We have some payroll, time, travel, and expense reporting. Opportunity for employee grievances. That includes opportunity to circumvent or work around the water engineer if your grievance is with the water engineer. Some discussion of termination of employment, use of Office of the Engineer IT equipment is pretty good section in here. There's opportunity for employee cell phone reimbursements, which I believe are essential. I have done cost comparatives on having office cell phones. This is a significant benefit to us. I have included, in fact, there is a last page that has some well, what do we do for the period of time that has happened before these policies were enacted? I'll go over those a little bit, but it does include backdating of employee cell phone reimbursements because their employees have been using their cell phones for this office work. And in fact, our recent endeavors on getting linked up to the state of Montana's VPN require everybody have their own smartphone that has an app on it that is state specific and provides a two-factor rotating number. My point is, we have that for our own machines too. We will find ourselves in a two-factor authentication process for Office of the Engineer machines also. So some of this stuff is well, it's nice to have the ability to do a GPS mark out in the field. Some of this stuff is well, it'd be nice to log on to your computer too. So it's I consider it to be essential need. We touch on digital records and appropriate web content, clarification that, what happens to Office of the Engineer property upon termination, clarification that there's no expectation of privacy on Office of the Engineer equipment or on the premises here. We have clarification of the responsibility for passwords and maintaining computers. Security, each of our employees will need to do their best and has to have a commitment to work here to maintaining computer security. And we have a commitment that's also laid out in here for ergonomics. You can see we already have some of that going on. I do believe it's more productive for folks to have opportunities to have desks with adjustable heights and good chairs. So that's been essential. We have a commitment in here to workplace safety, and we'll be assigning a safety officer, we'll be providing emergency action plans, we'll be doing some other updates. You've already noticed some of that's already happened before these policies are set out, like the security camera, and we have some other processes that are already underway. And we look forward to developing that. Additionally, that will include office, that will include field, and that will also eventually include vehicle safety. There's some clarifications on how media and communications are expected to occur here. And these personnel policies include an employee acknowledgement form. They include the state of Montana travel information for per diem, which sets how the employees here would receive per diem, lodging, and other types of reimbursements for their efforts. And then we have on the last page an initial adoption of benefit factors where our general plan, we have been tracking paid time off, my suggestion here is to go back to the first year and do a balancing of those. If the PTO is less than 0, starting over at 0, because these policies were not in effect. Most of us were under leave as needed arrangement. So that would be able to bring us forward and have modern paid time off allowances. Here, of course, the paid time off does group sick and annual together, and puts the responsibility of managing those times on the employee. That said, Mr. Chairman, board members, I'm not sure how detailed the board wants to get into this, and I stand at your direction. It is on your Thursday agenda as like an opportunity to adopt it. It is in your hand now, and you have a digital copy in your inbox. You do have the opportunity to give me explicit changes that you'd like to see sometime tomorrow, or at least so that we can get them incorporated by the meeting start time, and the board can take an action with changes if needed. I'm kind of an open book on how much or how little detail you'd like to go into over these policies.
Thank you, Ethan. So open for discussion. My initial thought after looking at these has been that today, at least, we tried a couple things. We take sort of a high level view of this, and we discuss anything we want to discuss. If there's any direction we want to give Ethan, ideas want to give Ethan today, we could do that. If there's something specific you want to discuss here today, we can do that. But to try to keep it high level, I wasn't sure if we were ready to go page by page, but I am open to your thoughts and suggestions today.
Mr. Chairman,
Ken?
I would like to have a day to take this home and go through it.
Okay.
And somebody comments to you.
Okay. Thank you, Ken. If anybody does have any comments, we can do that today, or any questions, things you want to point out today. If we take another day or so to take a look at these, in the meantime, we want to get your comments to Ethan so that we can get your comments gathered and get updated drafts.
I kind of agree with Ken. I'd like to give this a little more review, but I don't think I have time to do that by Thursday. We could postpone our final review, or set up a work session for that, or have that at another meeting.
I think that's a good suggestion myself. I mean, I think that this is extensive in detail, and I think that I know Teresa's probably read it line by line and is ready with comments. I do need more time to go through this so that we can go through this in some detail. I do have some thoughts that I could share today and some things we could discuss today, but it's not necessary. But yeah, I would tend to agree that I'm not sure that we can be ready to approve this by Thursday. Maybe we, by Thursday, spend some more time discussing it, and by Tuesday. Would that be appropriate?
Sure. And then
At least keep it on
See
the
how far
agenda.
we
for-
get,
yeah,
yeah.
see how far we get, yeah. Well, anybody else? Georgia?
No, I agree. It's a lot of stuff to review. And I know there's some urgency to have a personnel policy, but I also understand we get one chance to do this really well, and we want to do a good job out of it. So I need more time.
Yeah. Teresa. Okay, well, we need more time. Does anybody have any comments or suggestions, things you want to point out today? I know I've looked at this a lot. a lot of things I need to spend more time on. But I did note that, you know, I didn't know if there was something in here on social media. Whether there's anything on contract employees or contractors. Question on the holidays, the federal holidays list, I had a couple questions on that. Just the way that was laid out there. Possibly need some discussion on the previous state, tribal, federal years of service. Who decides those eligibilities? Employee complaints generally, it looks like we're covered under a grievance process, and Ethan already talked about the fact that employees can file complaints to him unless it's about him. And I'm thinking my question will be for the board is it's suggested that employees can come to a board member. I'm going to suggest that it be the chair or vice chair, but that's open for discussion. We want to make sure we're clear in that so that anything you don't want to do there. I'm not sure if I see a definitions list. With regard to working, once we start working in the field, we may want to look at how it's laid out in terms of permits to get on the tribal land. I think individuals can do that for themselves privately, but we ought to be able to work out some sort of group permit or work permit situation with the tribe for our employees. I think that's doable. They do that in other situations. They can take action on it. So there are some options there I think we can look at. So those are some of the things that jumped out at me quickly going through it, but there may be others. Any other comments or suggestions today?
I'd like to make a couple of comments.
Please.
And then I will go with the flow if we want to do written comments or just gather them in more discussion. Just a couple of quick comments. I think any request from an employee for reasonable accommodation needs to be in writing. The section on duplicative salaries, 4.05, I have concerns about that. Every place I've been employed, it is your primary place of employment, and you seek permission from your employer to have secondary employment, verifying that it doesn't conflict with your primary employment. So I have concerns about 4.05. The 4.08 also contracting interests. I think that may need a little work. And in 4.08, and there's in several sections, I want to suggest that we maybe replace termination with separation, because termination generally has a negative connotation. So an employee can voluntarily separate. That's a more positive way instead of saying voluntary termination. I do think 4.09 just needs just a tad work, because we're using 12 months following separation or 6 months following separation. But I think we just need to be consistent. I do object and do not think it's a good idea for the office of the engineer to be able to reduce somebody's probationary period. Just because someone has been successful in another employment situation doesn't necessarily mean they'll be successful here. I think those special treatment situations sometimes get employers in trouble. So I think everybody should serve a probationary period if possible. But those are kind of some of my initial comments. The other one was a statement that if somebody gets a copy of this, they accept, and there was reference to they accept these policies. And I think we can ask employees to acknowledge the policies, but acceptance is a different term. I think we can just say that they acknowledge these policies. With the drug-free workplace 4.1.0, I think if anybody is going to witness a violation of drug-free workplace, they are required to report it to their supervisor or board member, but you also need to offer a written statement or a notarized affidavit. Because if an employee offers a notarized affidavit, that protects the employer if they're going to treat that as a valid drug-related concern. So just stuff like that. But the use of the word termination, it's used way too much. I would like to suggest we go to the term separation. Stuff like that. The annual review part on 5.04, Ethan, that was confusing to me. I don't know if you do a performance appraisal at 90 days, 180, then again an annual, which would mean, I just want to understand, does that mean the person during their probationary period would receive 3 evaluations? I'm just unclear about that, but that's can be clarified. And then the portion where we talk about employees may be required to draft their own performance assessments, we need to make sure that we're using an approved format in the same format for everybody. Stuff like that.
Okay. Any other comments at this time? So, it looks like we'll try to have some further discussion of this at the next meeting. Between now and then, if you want to provide specific comments to any of it to Ethan, I would just suggest we go ahead and do that by email. If you want to mark up the document and send it to him that way, you can do that. Will that work, Ethan? Will that approach work for you?
Mr. Chairman, board members, it is my preference that folks would use track changes on the digital copy that was emailed to you. As of the length of the document, giving me something with things written on there is hard for me to retain the record that a board member has given me specific comments about it, and B, it's harder for me to bring it over. Additionally, certainly, some of the things that board member Ron McDonald brought up were legacy pieces that I inherited in the work plan, and I didn't hear anything in there that wasn't manageable. You know, I'm a little nervous about requiring an affidavit on a senior drug offense because I do think that tends to make people less likely to report drug offenses. So I have you can convince me either way on either day. But if it's the board's desire to have an affidavit process, we can certainly fit that in there.
Yeah, something in writing, it probably is
Got it.
appropriate.
Have to do it.
To have some documentation. Yeah, thanks, Ethan.
Mr. Chairman, board members, just thinking about your desire to have more time. Does it make sense to just move this Thursday's meeting to later? And then give board members time to have that, and then we could just have that whole agenda shifted. You know, are we talking a week, or I'm trying to fill that out?
Comments, thoughts? Roger?
When would the next board meeting be, I guess?
We could do 5/18, which is like a week from tomorrow. We could do some other, I'm again, just trying to feel things out here, Board.
You have a agenda for Thursday's meeting?
Yeah, it already went out, but we can
I guess I was just wondering.
unnotice that and change the date on it.
Well, I didn't see it yet.
That was, that went out at 11, about 11 this morning, which is,
Yeah, I was driving in.
There's enough things on that 11th agenda. You know, I'm just wondering how we should be doing the 11th and the 11th and the 18th.
Yeah, I didn't, that was where I was going. I didn't want to cancel the 11th if it wasn't for the agenda. And so just to move this to another date would be my preference.
Mr. Chairman, board members, what kind of date were we thinking?
For my part, having an extra week to look at this is sufficient. So if we had our meeting again on Thursday to take care of those items, that's fine, and then on the next would be the 18th, right? That would give me enough time to deliver this, not everybody else.
All righty.
Yeah.
And
Teresa?
Yep.
So let's shoot for that 11th and 18th, and then we'll look at the 18th being primarily these policies again.
Mr. Chairman, board members, just to double check, we will maintain discussion of the policies this Thursday, additional discussion, because that is on the agenda, but that we'll move the action item to the 18th. Is that, or, you know, is that generally what I understand the plan is?
I thought we would want to have a full week to review this, so I'm not going to be prepared to discuss this on Thursday.
So you don't want to discuss it at all on Thursday?
I'd like to remove it from the agenda.
Okay. The thoughts? Yeah, we'll take it off of Thursday's agenda.
Okay.
And again, feel free to make your written comments to Ethan. Preferably by.
Sorry to hold the board here, but on the 18th, we would be looking at taking action on the personnel policy, like discussing it, making any final modifications based on the comments that we got, and taking action on the 18th. Is that my understanding?
Teresa?
I think it's important enough. I don't know if I would be ready to take action on it if I haven't seen revisions or the edits.
Yeah, I kind of look at this as same level of effort that the bylaws, put on the bylaws. So that's why I concur with Teresa that maybe we do our review comments and then get a revised version after our review comments and then take action.
Then take action. And then, so we would be taking action then holding an additional meeting then in the month of May, or waiting until June. For our first June meeting. So, right. Ken, sound fair? Yeah. Teresa? We're good?
I just have a quick
Yes.
question. Just, this is a process question. So to answer that, I guess, when we submit our comments via track changes, we cannot see each other's comments, correct? Or can we?
You're not supposed to be able to see each other's comments in that process. That is a process that's designed where you send the comments to the engineer. the engineer then at the next meeting or some other appropriate time can go over the comments that were received. And I mean, frankly, for something like this, it's pretty cumbersome. And not something that I designed here, but I am encouraging the board to figure out a way to, maybe we could take some things off of the 11th. The main thing I need to get moved along with is a personnel policy. So that is some essential action. I would discourage the board from waiting to take action on something like this until June. And I do remind the board that you did have a draft of this, and I did not get any responses from the first draft of that.
We didn't, but at this point, the plan we just described is the best we can do at the moment. Even if we include it on this Thursday's agenda, I think we're probably only looking at maybe providing some additional comments. You know, for the board's purpose here, if we left it on the agenda Thursday, it might give you an opportunity to discuss something briefly and without having to go through all the documented detail. There might be an item you want to discuss, at least for that purpose. So we could leave it, if it's okay with you, we can leave it on the 11th agenda with the express understanding that we would plan on, at least for now, a thorough review of this on the 18th, and then we'll go from there. And if you're inclined to try to take action on it more quickly, we could do a very quick meeting that following week again, just to get that approved. So that we've got a couple options there, but that would be a good thought. So would that be okay, Roger? Roger?
Yeah, I guess I'm just going back to the process. If we've covered this before, beg the patience of the board. For me, I benefit from the board's comments,
Right.
which is why it is helpful when we do a group process, but I understand there's some urgency as well. May I ask why we can't see each other's comments during the track changes? Because then that, for me anyway, that would expedite my review. But if there's a reason for that, then.
Let me
just-
take a quick shot at that because it's
Our
my-
legal counsel is on the,
Yeah, it's
on the
my
board
under-
here.
if we need to go there, my understanding is that we're trying to avoid that because by having these group discussions,
It's
it becomes something that we may be an open meeting violation.
okay.
And would we, to avoid that, that's how we're trying to. So is that your understanding? Ethan?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and board, that is my understanding, is that this particular discussion, when there's back and forth on a draft, that is sculpting the end product outside of the public eye. And although I wrangled with that, that's where memos and other things have left me. So it's not because I'm very controlling. But it is, that is what I understand of the public process.
Which in my thought might be a good reason to keep it on the 11th agenda in case somebody has some comments you want to share with the rest of the board, that way we can have that discussion with each other. All right. Good.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
We'll have a plan for a meeting on the 18th, but unlikely to take action on the 18th, and then setting a follow-up meeting sometime after that.
yeah, and we'll keep it on the 11th agenda just for possible discussion purposes.
Okay.
Now, as you mentioned, our legal staff, so I will just put this question out there for the board. If you have any questions for legal at this time, we can do that. Ethan, my understanding is that our legal team does have this.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and if Haley, are you there?
Haley, if Haley is on, if have any particular comments for the board right now, that would be appreciated.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
It's quiet, but we can hear you.
Okay, yes, I did receive the policies yesterday, from Ethan. I have been combing through them, but like most, board members, I also need to take a little bit more time to go through them, and then I'll just provide comments back to Ethan directly, with what I have. Just a few initial comments, from me so that, board members are aware of this, and hopefully we don't have duplicative comments. One is just if we are referring to Montana code, it would be best to provide that citation to that code section in these policies, especially when it comes to, for example, let me see here, like workplace safety, discrimination, just those types of sections, so that there is reference for that, and for the Office of the Engineer's protection as well.
Okay. Haley, thank you on that particular point on citing Montana code. One of my questions was going to be, when appropriate, would it also be useful to cite tribal and/or federal code? One of the places I was thinking about was the drug policy, because they may all be somewhat so different, but I'm not sure if that gets us into a conflict or not. But I wondered if that wouldn't be something we could discuss after you get a chance to look at that.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. I will definitely take a look at that. Because the board is this government instrumentality and does take direction from the state and the tribe. There is that thought and that discussion. So that's definitely something that I'll take under advisement.
Okay. Thank you, Haley. Any questions for Haley? All right. Thank you, Ethan. Thank you, Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, I think we're set for future discussion for the personnel policies. So you have them. Ethan, I'll work on getting my comments to you via track changes, but I might have to call you. I did a few track changes, but I know a couple of them I tried to make. It just sort of did its own thing. I'm not sure what it was doing, so I may need to get another electronic version from you, because I think it saved some things I didn't want on there. So either way, I'll get you comments one way or the other.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
If anybody else has those same problems, let Ethan know so he can look at doing those. So, all right. Any reason not to move on? Okay, hearing none. So we're on item 5. We scratched item 4. And so discussion of new forms. And so we were designed to go from 3 to 5. It is a few minutes after 4. So the board needs a break. Good. All right. Ethan.
Mr. Chair and board members, this is really just a formal way of us saying, hey, we've got these forms that we want you to take action on on Thursday, and I can tell you the ones that we're for sure wanting to take action on. I can tell you the ones that we suspect will probably need to be delayed. Board will permit. You should have 5 forms. Right, 5 forms. All right, number
Ethan, you say we have 5. I haven't counted what's in my packet on the list, so 6 here, right?
Right.
I think the 5 in the packet.
My apologies, Mr. Chairman, we did strike the development form as per item 4, so we'll have that update next week. Instead, you should be looking.
So item 5.3 is tied to the item we struck.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
That
Okay.
is accurate.
So we can scratch
Thank you,
it.
sir.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, there are 5 forms. They are, other than one of them, they are fairly administrative in nature. So if the board will allow, we can start off with 5.1, which is the request to withdraw a water right. The request to withdraw a water right is for a situation where an applicant has an existing well, an existing water right, and they really just want to do something different. And there's really, when you have something like a small domestic water right, like a certificate, groundwater certificate that was issued as a state-based permit, if you want to modify that, you really have to go, there's 2 ways to go about it. One, you can try to add a use to it if you have enough use allowed. That doesn't really work so great for us because we had this bright line of change between when the compact became effective and before. And so adding to a groundwater 602 may not always work out. So the other option would be to change the water right, which is a very long and involved process and unrealistically cumbersome for something where you're just talking about changing small amounts of water. So another option is to provide a water right owner the opportunity to withdraw the old water right and just apply for a new one that has all the new terms of service that they would like. This request to withdraw a water right is a voluntary form. There's no requirement, but it is something that would allow an applicant the option to just have a do-over with their existing groundwater certificate.
But the dues a priority date.
Yes, sir. One more thing, this is a form that generally exists for the state of Montana off the reservation.
So I guess Clayton had to step out to make a phone call. So I got a question though. So my concern on this one is, so Basin 76 L and LJ are the last to be adjudicated because of the compact negotiations. So all of the, David, there's a lot of pending water rights in the queue at the Montana Water Court. So if somebody comes in and were to withdraw a water right, how would that get recognized by the Montana Water Court?
Mr. Vice Chairman, the water rights that are statements of claim are not, they're pending adjudication, but they are prima facie evidence of use right now. So you can withdraw a water right that's pending adjudication. That is an option. And in fact, that could be one of the reasons that you might want to do this is if you had a groundwater use that was filed and has to go through the adjudication process, and you really don't care about the priority date, and you don't want to participate in the adjudication process, you know, as of right now in our office, we do accept new applications for existing wells. And if you have that older well hooked up to an existing house, you might want to just fast track yourself on not having to take the more cumbersome route. But you can definitely withdraw a statement of claim. Again, though, this was designed more for certificates, which would be post 73 uses.
Well, and those are the exact ones that are being, that do have an assigned water right or have been examined or gone through the water court. So are you gonna submit this form then to the water court? So the water court is advised that that water right then has been withdrawn, or what?
The submission of this form would be the DNRC to the water rights information system.
All the
Yeah, so
water-
we would get it here,
Connected to the
and
database.
we do need, yeah, everything is connected to the database. And it does bode the question, you know, when this form starts to move forward, we'll have to develop an interim MOU on how to get the water rights database updated for records that are, you know, that need to be updated before the virus project is completed, the enhancement project is completed.
We have a hand up from Bill Hoyt.
We have a hand from Pela.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I can't be there in person, but Ethan, could you clarify, were you hoping that there could be an MOU with DNRC to change existing water rights before virus enhancements are completed?
Not change them in the term of art sense, but do some record maintenance for things that are kind of essential. Somebody's hung up.
Okay.
So not change, but you know, maybe a correction here or there, maybe a withdrawal of a water right. But right now, somebody on the reservation can't really fill out a DNRC form to withdraw their water right, because it's a state-based water right on the reservation.
Well, I just wanted to share with folks that that we talked with Ethan about this before the meeting. And so we added these capabilities, exploring how to get these parts of the virus enhancements done to the first phase of virus enhancements. You know, we talked about doing them in 2 different phases. And so we, recognizing that this is something important for the ops engineer, we added these capabilities to the charter proposal for phase 1. And just from DNRC's perspective, we really are prioritizing the development of the enhancements with the aim of having the office of the engineer be able to make these changes directly. And it would be our preference to focus our energy on developing those enhancements before working through an MOU to make changes to the database at this time. We've not talked with our legal counsel about this, so I just don't know if they're going to be comfortable with such an MOU. So that would just be a question out there that we need to answer. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. So this form, got both a declaration statement and a notary statement. I was just curious why.
The main reason that we would notarize something like this is because the applicant is removing a private property right. And I believe that it has a higher burden of documentation because of that effect. And so there are still a couple of actions where our office would like to continue the use of notary. And in a situation like withdrawing a water right, we think that we don't want to have to guess that the signature on the line is actually the one for the water right owner.
That makes sense.
A moment ago, Roger, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just asked him about how this would affect those pending claims in the water court right now. And I guess the big thing is that if something like this were to occur, it's still, the big issue is it needs to get entered into the database, the NRC database, so there's documentation that that has occurred.
Hey, Mr. Vice Chairman, technically this office can take actions that are not necessarily recorded in the centralized database, and then they would still at least be legal and just actions, and with the understanding that eventually they'd be recorded in the centralized database as well. We have some situations like that with some water rights that have been issued out of this office that are not currently part of the centralized record system. But they do hold title of the office, the authority of the board, and signature and witness as an act that has occurred.
So I'm wondering, would that be only a concern until all of the state-based data has been transferred to us? Once it's been transferred to us, all of this would apply strictly to what we do, because there might be state-based, but they're going to transfer to this board eventually.
Right, and this would be, once we're connected to virus, then this could be easily entered into that system and tracked. I don't see a problem with this. I just want to make sure that we're not missing a step here.
That would be well coordinated with them if that's appropriate, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, the effort from this office is that we don't want to misstep and issue something on top of an existing use, which would be an inappropriate arrangement where we've got two water rights purpose for the same thing. That's generally to be avoided. And yeah, I think throughout any of the charters of the encouraging the orderly use of water, there's really supposed to be one water right that makes up for only a portion or all of the use. So that, and we have had the problem come up where people have a water right that was, I'll just say, filed imperfectly. And this would provide an opportunity if they wanted to do it. Again, keeping in mind that our only real criteria is that we can't issue something over the top of something else that would be duplicative. And in fact, the water court, one of their main jobs is to identify duplicative filings and theoretically reduce duplicative filings.
So administratively, how do you see this actually working? It sounds like it's just a tool to use in the event that it's needed.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, Board, the way I see this working is that even if we didn't record this in the centralized records system, we could have this request to withdraw the water right and have a copy of that in the file of the new authorization that we also don't have in the centralized database, and the catch-up day will happen. Fun day that'll be.
A lot of the
Yeah. Again, yeah, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chairman of the board, The whole, these forms are just an introduction to the forms so that you can either give us some very direct suggested changes on Thursday, or you could feel comfortable about the forms on Thursday, enough to thumbs down or thumbs up the form as needed. All right, the next form that we have on here, and these got on here in no particular order, but we do have a draft complaint form. It is a form that I had thought that it would be possible that the board would want to take its time on. It is also something that I thought we should have a draft out there so that if the board did want to enact the complaint process, you've got it. You can decide what you want to do with that draft, and you can decide the timing on that draft. You can decide if you want to have some additional enforcement policies set forth before there's a water use complaint. But for our office's purpose, I don't see anywhere in the ordinance where we can turn complaints away. And I would rather have complaints come in an organized fashion, and I would like to have the board have plenty of time to think about the complaint form. You did give me time to hear about the enforcement section, chapter 3 of the ordinance, and I appreciated that. This is a follow-up for thought, and there's, I'm sure, an array of all the forms that are in front of you. This is the one that would likely change the most. With your input.
So aside from the details of the individual water uses, I assume where it says describe the nature of the complaint, that if that someone needs more space, we can grant that to them.
Yes, sir.
A narrative, when somebody's writing a narrative about their complaint, I suspect they're going to want.
Mr. Chairman, it does say after describe the nature of the complaint, attach additional information if necessary.
All right. That'll work.
Yep. There is a filing fee. There is some designation that there may be the opportunity to reallocate that fee to the respondent.
Ethan, in your experience, I mean, I think anytime we're trying to receive complaints, we want to work from facts and do the best we can. Your experience in working with the state system, how did this work?
Mr. Chairman, board members, the way that this has typically worked in the past is that there's a formal complaint filed in one of the regional offices. The regional manager, sometimes with myself as a technical expert in tow, would go out, make notice to the property owners where the alleged complaint is occurring. Beforehand, do the research to find out who's got what water rights between the complainant and the respondent, which is the person that's being complained about. And then armed with information of water rights and whatever else we could find out about historic use, going out to the site and doing a site review, then following up with a letter, which would amount to one of our orders, which is what section 3 has for us of the ordinance. And the order, in this case, a letter, usually seeks a voluntary solution, depending on the nature of the issue. But if there's the illegal use, knock off the illegal use. If there's an illegal pond, somehow figure out a way to get in compliance. But, trying to solve it if there's just a issue amongst water users who need help with prior appropriations, then sometimes there could be a measurement stipulation. There could be an array of options that might be available. And then the follow-up, the wild card is what happens if somebody does not comport with the letter. And what do they do? You know, what do you do there? That's where DNRC's arrangement is very different from this office's arrangement on what their options are. Here is a very fast track towards, you know, some kind of a more stern action if needed. If there's an illegal use that won't stop using water, you've got a pretty easy way to impose fines.
Would these likely end up in some sort of hearing situation?
There is an initial mandate for a hearing out of this office if so needed. And so there's, I think the complaint comes in and within 3 days, we serve a copy of the complaint to the respondent, and then there's a certain amount of time, I think 15 days. I don't have it in front of me, as chairman, to where we've got to schedule a hearing. There's additional opportunity for this office to gather information and have a 10-day delay. But yeah, it could quickly end up in a hearing.
Which could potentially end up in front of the board.
That hearing is in front of me. If the resolution of that hearing in front of the water engineer does not meet somebody's favor, they can then appeal to the board, and an appeal to the board can stop any action, or at least pause the action from an order. So as a water engineer, if I write an order based on the complaint, that pauses as the appeal makes its way through the board.
In this
An
form,
appeal to the order.
this particular form is something, a form like this is something you're familiar with, or is this kind of a new format?
Mr. Chairman, board, this, there is an existing complaint form. This is modified a little to meet our needs here with the a little different arrangement with the ordinance.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Ken?
on your filings, it says the filing fee may be redistributed to the responsible party determined by water engineer. What is that responsible party?
That actually should say respondent, but
Well, if,
Why do we give money back
Yeah.
to the respondent?
yeah,
so the filing expense. It's forward. Thank you, Ken.
But we wouldn't give it back, right?
No, it would say somebody else has to pay it. That was the intent of that hearing.
You didn't mean to give the money back out to somebody, you mean to assign the payment to someone else.
Yes. That's what the intent of that statement, which.
so the office engineer is going to decide who pays the filing.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
that's what I think, and that's how it should be phrased here.
Do you-
It'd be simple.
Yes, do you ever ask the individual who's filing the complaint whether or not they have a proposed solution? When you think about an employee grievance, an employee can file a grievance, and part of their written record is to identify their proposed solution. That doesn't mean they'll get it, but at least it's a tool for communication about the outcome they might like.
That would be a good addition. We were focused a little bit more on the like like, have you tried to work it out with the water user first? Have you looked to see if have you done any research to see if the water user has water rights? But we can certainly add something on what would be the preferred outcome, but that's a little. It has been my personal experience with complaints filed that when you go out to the site, nobody's really quite using their water the correct way. And so we can solicit the preferred outcome, but it may not. It may, well, I have to find a creative way to say that and then probably get Ken to tell me I worded it wrong again.
I was gonna say, call it preferred remedy.
Preferred remedy.
Yeah. Because when you file something in court, you gotta tell the court what we want to do, and make the court, ensure the court has the jurisdiction to do it.
Sounds like the new number 10. To me, an excellent idea. Thank you. You'll see that in there on Thursday, and then you could still table this form if you'd like, but you'll have that. We'll do some corrections on the filing fee language as well. And if anybody board wants to read our forms, we'll take additional. We very much invite your comments on these forms. And on the forms, which are impossible to track change, I'm happy to take a written marked up thing, and you can take a picture with your phone if you need to, or scan it, or drop it off at the office, or come up with some other creative way to get it to us.
Any other discussion? Yes. Ken.
So I understand the benefits or the need for a complaint form, but I guess my concern is that I don't want this to wind up in a time sink for the staff. Staff time is really, really valuable. And so as a little prep for this, I contacted Jim Birch at the DNIC office in Kalispell. He's been there about 6 months, and I asked him how many of these he's gone out on. And he said he was just going out on his first one that day. And then I followed up with Kathy Olson and asked her, how many of these complaints did you do in a year? And she says, generally about 2. And she said she tried to resolve most of them via the telephone so that it would minimize going to the site, spending time, eating up a whole day. So I guess I would just be judicious in trying to not get overly involved with filing complaints when there's higher priority items out there to address.
I completely understand that. We are, same time, I do want to have a process in place for when we do need to do it. One difference might be that on the reservation, there hasn't really been enforcement since the mid-90s, which is a complication. Also, another interesting bit is that a lot of the water use here is actually with the Flathead Indian Irrigation Project, which is not something that we need to work on this complaint form for within project user complaints, not our business. So there may be a backlog, but then there's also this large swath that's not something that we do need to manage. We have had folks contact us asking for this form.
Any other comments, discussion? Thank you, Ethan.
And for what it's worth, Mr. Vice Chair, you have it in front of you if you want to table it next Thursday for some amount of time. That is, we're all here to serve the board's privilege.
I think, at that one meeting, we went over there was a lot of very explicit enforcement language in the compact, and we need to have this kind of forum. Just don't want to get caught up in a time sink using this.
Thank you.
Do you have a comment, Kayla?
Kayla, you have a hand up. Thank you.
Hi, folks. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, DNRC appreciates how important it is for the board and the office to address illegal water use. And I think at the last work session, the board members who are present really brought up some good points about the importance of having all the pieces in place in order to do this right. We agree with that. One of the key pieces that we think is important is, again, the wireless enhancements. Sorry to mention them again, but they really are an important priority. But the other piece out there that I did want to mention is that DNRC requests that the board get their website up and running in order to document this complaint process. And if that's not possible, then we'll just need to develop a page where we could do that. There's not currently a page on the DNRC website, and also just a process for doing that, just because there are such short timeframes. But hopefully the website is coming along well and can be up and running soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Kayla. All right, Ethan, thank you.
All righty. Next item is a reduction correction form. Similar to a water right withdrawal form, however, this form does allow an applicant to reduce one of their existing uses, and the benefit of that would be that maybe they would add possibly like a new development domestic allowance onto an existing water rights certificate. The other thing that would be available here is if there is an obvious need to correct a water right, because we can look at the original filing and we can look at the wireless information and see a disconnect. This would be a good place to document the need to make that change. Similar to the water right withdrawal form, we either need to figure out a good way to play ball to make a few wireless changes before the enhancements are done, or we'll fill this out and put it in with the form that really needed to have this kind of a cleanup occur in order for us to be able to move forward in the first place, and go from there. Catch up to it later. For what it's worth, your employee Anna Butterfield has been asking for this form for a very long time, because she's unable to solve several problems that have come into this office because folks are maxed out on uses that are not real on their water rights. So they've got irrigation that's listed on there that's not being used. They just want to hook up their, daughter-in-law's house to the well, but they can't because there's no additional water left on the 602, right?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Is there a filing fee for this?
Exactly, that's what I was.
Yeah, so I did a lot of head scratching. There's no filing fee for this with for the form that the DNRC has. Generally, I had thought that our forms needed to track the DNRC forms. However, upon a further detailed reading of the ordinance, it does actually specify which forms in our ordinance need to track the DNRC filing forms. I haven't done an exhaustive look at that because I wanted to be cautious, but that was my thought too, because this is work, and work is work. So how about I come back with something more than my first blush look at those filing fees. I don't want to get in crossways with the ordinance, but I'm right there with you on the need to bring in a little bit of money to help us with this type of efforts.
One more question. Since the person here is, or entity is actually relinquishing part of the property, right, in line with your reasoning on the withdrawal, they should have a notary or two.
We'll add that to it.
Just a thought.
It does seem consistent.
Have you seen these?
Have
you seen these being acted? Anyone?
Oh, yes, off the reservation. Reduction, corrections, yes. That's kind of common. Day to day, it's a small way to like clean up records. But oftentimes you don't want to make a water right smaller without some sort of signature from a water user requesting that change. Now, these don't allow a change in purpose or place of use or some kind of something that would trigger a larger scale analysis to look to see if it matches the old historic use. So it's a smaller bit of either reducing what you previously had been using or correcting something that just seems obvious.
Any other comments? You can see them.
All right, that brings us to a deadline extension. We have a form in front of you that has a deadline extension request. We get asked for this form often. We intend that this deadline extension will apply to multiple types of deadlines. In this, that it would be able to be modified in the future as we bring more water right application types online. Presently, we really need it for the things that are listed in here. If you need to extend your deadline, like you didn't get your well drilled in a year. If you come in and you file this before you miss your deadline, you can extend your deadline for 6 months. We'll change your priority date. It'll cost you $65. If you miss your deadline, you can come in, you can file this. We'll charge you $115. You got to do that within 6 months of missing your deadline. And we will again, we'll give you an extension. And they're all at the discretion of the water engineer because we recognize that there may be ongoing changes in groundwater management areas and things like that in the future. So we won't necessarily, if that would be a scenario that's a problem, that might be caused where we would not. So say new groundwater management area goes in, they have some additional requirements about filing for an individual domestic allowance. That might be a situation where we would have to consider the nature of the groundwater management area before just extending it.
Question. What's your rationale for the price increase?
Sure. So first of all, we wanted 65 because we have another form that's 55 and we know that this was different. Second, the 115 is required if you missed your deadline, because typically we have to send you a termination.
So there's more work involved.
Yeah, there's more work involved. We do think it's still generally to the applicant's benefit, so it's not the full $125, which is what a whole new application would be. But if you want to not have to like refill out the form that you got approval on, and you just want to let your deadline get missed, you could fill out this for $115 and go from there.
So applicants, when they're going through the original process, will be made aware of this as well.
Yeah, it's on their forms, what the rules are. We're going to draw some better bright lines in the upcoming policy documents too on what all your deadlines are for every type of application that this office sees.
More comments? Thanks, Ethan.
Sure. The last one. The water measurement report. This is a significant update from the state's water measurement report. We like it. It's got an 01 because the state does have several different types of water measurement reports, from open channel measurements and other things like this. In this particular case, their focus is primarily on what will be needed for development domestic violence.
Take a comment.
Yes,
On the page, you spelled the measurement wrong.
it's not picky, that's just bad. That's spelled. Probably me that did it. I can't find it, probably really.
Oh, it's on the notes column,
Oh.
So, Ethan, just as a reminder for us and anyone else who's listening, when does this apply?
When does this apply? A water measurement report, a water measurement report would apply if you file for a development domestic allowance, which is larger than an individual domestic allowance or a shared domestic allowance. It's the ones that are made for, I'll just say minor subdivisions. And this does not apply at all to any individual small domestic wells for individual homes. As is made clear in our FAQ that's out there.
Very good.
It could also apply to pre-existing water measurement requirements that happened before any compact was ever passed that Montana DNRC so chose to impose. So those are out there. There are people who are already measuring water on this reservation because their permits. It's real.
I think,
Very good. Yes.
I think you need to say that in the form. Like, I can see tractors running like this. Oh, here we go. We're gonna put them on our wells.
Okay.
Is there an introductory piece to this
Introductory statement.
to be part of this?
Yeah.
Clarify when it applies, when it does not. That's what you said.
We can do that. And I would take a moment before Carrie walks off, tell you that Carrie and James, Christie had done a ton of work on these.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. I know you guys are doing a lot of work on this. I appreciate this. And before we go any further, Kayla, congratulations. I know you're there. I know I sent you an earlier email, but just wanted to congratulate you. I know you're moving on. Just wanted to say congratulations and wish you well.
Thank you.
I assume the rest of the board's aware of it. Oh, we got a question, a serious question over here for you, Teresa.
Yes, what are you going to be doing?
I'm gonna be working for Yellowstone to Yukon, and I'm gonna be their Director of Landscape Connectivity for the US and Canada.
Nice.
So
Good.
really excited.
Well, you do awesome at whatever you do.
Thank you. And I am looking forward to watching you all continue to grow this new thing here on the reservation. It's been exciting to be part of the very beginning of it.
Very good. Thank you for all your help. Good luck. Ethan, anything else?
I know, sir.
Okay, board members, anything? Roger?
No.
Teresa? No. Ken? Thank you, and I appreciate the vote of confidence and continuing to be chair, and thank you, Roger, for stepping in to be vice chair. Thank you, Ken, for all the work you've done. Now you can spend more time just working on your trees. With that, I think we can end this work session. So thank you. We'll see you all on Thursday with another full agenda. Thanks for accommodating my schedule and getting 2 of these in this week. I know that's a little bit tight, but thank you. Appreciate it. All right. That ends this. Thank you. Thanks, staff.